All right, I'm doing this when I'm posted up in the cut. You know what I mean? Sometimes life does this to you. But, what I'm going through has lent me to a certain observational tower. Um, and I've been watching hell of these YouTube videos of these like girls that get like locked up or, criminal acts. And there's like women, traditionally attractive women that are like stealing shit or like hitting licks trying to, hit the bank or um, fighting at the airport, and then they, you know, just seeing the, I guess it's like helping me to kind of do therapy to see police encounters and like see somebody not get murdered and be like, okay, they ain't all, just ravenous. For whatever reason, I found myself observing these things. But I guess I'm doing this as a public service announcement because, certain life experiences give you certain perspectives. And, it would be wrong of me to not share the perspective on how to like look out for us going forward. Cause, sometimes I see her as like, it's like a woman that would probably be somebody that's blood related or attractive, to a melanated man, which i.e. a melanated woman, what have you, ending up in a situation where they go, a pretty woman is not necessarily used to like the art of war. And we talking about trafficking. And I just be, this one that I just watched kind of hit me in a specific way because I'm familiar with the ways that crackers and, Eurocentric societies try to orchestrate circumstances so that they can justifiably, quote unquote, justice being the operative word and a very relative term, but justifiably in their eyes, traffic this woman. So she was doing Airbnb and she's a bartender apparently, and she's been going through financial struggles or something based on what she's saying. And then there was another woman in the Airbnb who had a purse that was downstairs on the sofa. Somehow she saw the purse at 1 a.m., picked up the purse, took the purse. It was a rack in there. She took the money because she needed to pay rent. And then they, the day later she was on camera, they came and got her. And it was like, okay, this Venezuelan woman says she's missing this money. We got you on camera. First off, who leaves their purse unattended on a couch in an Airbnb lobby anyway? So then that made my brain start working, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. This is a trafficking scenario because, and let me just say, if they choose it, they choose it. Shout out to the P's out there. It is what it is. Oldest profession. I'm not talking about necessarily choosing the life. I'm talking about how the system will criminalize people such as myself and others who are very rich in energy and supply and source, and then make it to where on paper it looks like they are justified in harassing continuously from that point on. So this is what trafficking is. It's like sharecropping, energetic feasting from, for all intents and purposes, lower vibratory entities. You know what I mean? So it's like, let's say you got one individual that got a power level of 9 million. And then you got a bunch of other people that's just like creatures or schmeagles or whatever you want to call them. Or just, their power level is like 500 or like 1,000, maybe, and they want to be able to have access to that 9 million consistently to get token, get a couple hundred whenever they can. So what they have to do is, on paper, make it seem like this person is a threat to their own health or a problem to their community. So then they can, on paper, put it to where it's like, well, we want to assign them 15 people, or we want to keep the police following them. Hence why I always hear sirens every day. You know what I mean? And it's like they're always trying to antagonize, and they, hiring chinos to say little key phrases and all this stuff. And what it does is it creates an energetic drain, and it puts you in an aggravated state, which is where it's like psychic energy is coming off of you, like the It Clown, where they, adrenochrome you or like suck that energy psychically from you when they can get you to overreact or, get angry or whatever. So they see her as an abundant energy source. She's like, it's like Tatiana Ali all grown up. But, Gabrielle Union, Bring It On. But that era. So she's now sitting in the back of a police car because somebody put let's say she's working at the bar and there's some crackers or some locals that's just like, ooh, she look good. We like her. But she has integrity. But we want her. And they're so used to being barbarians or whatever. So it's like now they have this little thing called the law where they can orchestrate situations under the color of the law, and then they could get a circumstance that they desire, which would be her in the system, in order to then have her be down bad to where now she's more susceptible to manipulation and like sugar daddy energy, or like having to, go to Dubai and get pissed on or something to make her money, metaphorically, which would be something like finding a random pale man that would slime her up and, you know what I mean? Just the whole thing, basically. So I've seen it too many different times on these videos and in my own personal experience where it's like a random person just left there, a random debit card is just left there, a random opportunity to come up after we have already orchestrated you being down bad as we see it. So it's like, oh, she was saying, oh, the tips, I'm not getting as good of tips. There's a way that cities can orchestrate torture in that way. I had a lady friend that got roofied at the bar, and it was like everybody was in on it. Like her boyfriend brought her there, and she got roofied. And then the whole point was to try to put her into some situation, either killed or now she had a car accident because she was like, woozy out of it, trying to escape from people who was trying to put her into some kind of trafficking ring, kidnap, whatever. And so we got to be careful with who we're around, because these situations happen when they see people that are abundant energy sources 9 times out of 10 or 5 times out of 10. You can't trust these motherfuckers. And it's like finding solid people to be around is real. So when I seen her watching this video, I was just like, damn, if she only had a real one in her life, like a dude that was just like, not on some I'll pay your rent, but just on some like, here's the game of how this shit goes. So it's better sometimes to go without than to try to come up in a way where you're being set up to then be caught slipping, and now they could put them people on you forever because now you have a criminal record for this, and now they could say, well, yeah, we want to monitor this person. And that is something that I feel like happens fundamentally to us more from birth. How much, that's why they advertise to us what they advertise. Like I love NWA and I love, like what they're responding to and the radical natures and whatnot. But there's a weird reason why I feel like I grew up drawing gangsters with guns and stuff like that. It's like my mind was already curated to a certain degree, to a level of like, nigga, this is how your life's supposed to go. So then I'm more susceptible to rob and steal. And then that gives me a bad reputation. And then they can then put, you know what I mean? Before money was even important to me first, I had a thing where it was like, maybe I was absorbing it from my parents, but you know what I mean? It's like, I would rather somebody told me money ain't shit. It's about it's about community and et cetera. And we could build it together. Now that I know that, I wouldn't, I never would have like went in the purse or like, broke in or stole a safe from school, my sister's school or whatever. I used to go there, but the little shit that motherfuckers do, that's like, I gotta survive too. And it's justifiable in the sense of, or they on stolen land, but at the same time, they don't care, don't play fair. They orchestrated this shit in that way to where they could put the purse right there, set you up, knowing your financial situation, because they could check your bank. They know how much money everybody got, and they predetermined who has more money. So it's one of them things where if you got beauty and natural essences, like if they want that, they could set you up. And because everybody's brains is cultured to be like, oh, it's about the money, it's about the money. I can't let people know I'm going through it. So I'm willing to do, dirt behind the scenes that I normally wouldn't do just to keep this facade up. That's how they catch people, That's how they catch people slipping. And I was just looking at her like, damn, because she looked good. But it was just like, She just seen the purse. Why would this bitch leave the purse in the lobby? She didn't put those pieces together to be like, all right, this is a setup. I'm melanated. They want me to look like a criminal. But we got to start thinking steps ahead, because it's like, it's one thing to be like, oh, I need to hit this lick because I just need to have some money. But that in itself is like, it would be better to be free. You know what I mean? Because once you do that, now you in the system, and they might not get you right then, but they was watching you and they set you up. So now that they say, oh, this is a criminal, they're then going to try to put you in more criminal situations and follow you more, because it's like you already bit the bait. And now they could, like, it's like once you pick the gun up, a nigga could come shoot you. But if you don't pick the gun up, it's less likely that you're going to get shot or shot at or have to shoot. So it's just more so one of those things. This is warfare, but at the same time, it don't have to be. And I think if we could, everybody's talking about deprioritizing and decentralizing genders and all that, but I think if we could decentralize money as it relates to it being the deciding factor on what's valuable and who's valuable, because if she had a partner, regardless of how much money the nigga made, or, girlfriend or whatever, they could be huddled up as a tribe, and it would be less likely that she would have to put herself in harm's way in order to pay her rent at her Airbnb. And now she's in the back of the police car going to jail. Now she's criminalized in the ways that where for sure they're going to be at that bar, like monitoring her. She's going to get out they're going to keep, and then they're going to start sending her weird ass fake guru charismatic motherfuckers that seemingly giving her the solution because they know she's in the situation that they put her in, and now they're orchestrating her whole life, putting her in this like maze. And 5 years later she might be like, oh, I'm getting gang stalked, or I'm going through this. But it's like people make decisions that they were set up to be, to where it seems like you don't have another option, and the trend is fuck it, bitch, get yours. And that's the thing, where this whole thing is orchestrated from the top down to ensure that they have as many fresh bodies as they can to energy suck from or leech from. So it was just, it's kind of sad to watch, because it's like she was, I don't want to say she was goofy, but you just see a purse right there, there's camera. I mean, it just doesn't add up to me. Like, I've seen things where it's like, hell no. You know what I mean? It's like so set up. Me and the cousin was in Louisiana going to like Grambling, or we was somewhere in Grambling, like doing a college tour, and we went to this liquor store at night from the hotel, and the door was open. We opened the door, the alarm went off. We could have smashed and grabbed and took hella shit and whatever, but we would have been on camera. But it was almost like a setup to put us in a situation where we then had to go to jail, or, be, criminals have a record out there, or just be on camera like, who are these two, motherfuckers? And we was on a right path, but then that opportunity was, it's just little moments. And you could say, oh, it's a coincidence. Maybe they just kept it unlocked, or accidentally, whatever. But even still, spiritual warfare, you know how spiritual warfare goes. It's better to sometimes go without. And I'm learning that the hard way right now, because there's things in the past that I could be doing right now to get my daily bread and be, able to put racks up in the air and, do the things that we culturally have become known to do in a system of oppression. But it's like I have to resist because of how I'm already on camera, and I already know that these circumstances are heavily orchestrated with algorithms and shutting certain people out of financial opportunities and only allowing certain people to make good money so that they can be the crackers or the, the whip, the punch downers that continue to harvest energy from the abundant source of a melanated man and a melanated woman, or just a soulful being, you know what I mean? Because there's soul in everything, but it's just about if you choose to keep it and cultivate it, or if it's gone because you sold out. I'll be trying to just build up this dossier on how this shit is functioning, because being the most qualified but the most underprivileged is like a mind fuck until you figure out why, and then it's empowering, but then it still is like a gauntlet because you don't have too many people around you that are going through the same things as you're going through because they really just want you. And them motherfuckers, they probably was already voted like, they all right. We let them have what they have. They ain't creating no ripples. They ain't doing nothing. They're not gonna say anything radical. They're not gonna. So let them get what they get because we know they're gonna spend it on video games and pork, or the local eateries, or they're just gonna pay rent and just be quiet and diligently work. We can give them 70-hour work loads and they'll do it. But, we have been historically like, hell no, we gonna organize, or we was radical, or we was the chiefs or the warriors or the, priestesses that were above all of that. So then trying to subjugate a group of people and put them under dominion of something that was already after them, without being derogatory towards anybody, saying something that comes after is never going to be as potent as the thing that was original. And I think that's the foundation for a lot of this resentment that would create this dehumanizing circumstance. You hear the sirens? But it's like a daily thing. It's like with me, it's like they're trying to use osmosis and some kind of, like, I be having dreams where it's like, I feel like it's a projected dream, but these motherfuckers, they use any technology in any way they can to plant thoughts in your head that would hopefully manifest into their favor. Which is what the whole foundation of this civilization was destroy, defame, deter, and reclassify and everything. And then through the pain, they attach the pain with a new doctrine. So it's like, you reflect on the pain and then you see them. People say white supremacy in itself is like, why are you even saying that? Because the only thing supreme is the Most High and nature, So it's just, you got to recalibrate your whole psychology with this shit, but just recognizing the way that it goes, it's like, don't steal the bag, girl. Fuck that. You know what I mean? Like, there's always another option. Sometimes doing nothing. Maybe you might have to go get a rental and let's sleep in a rental, or like, save some bread. I don't know the circumstance. Sometimes less is more in the ways of like, you will be free, and you won't, they want the Parmesan crusted or the Wagyu steak and all that. And it's good, but it's like, if you gonna take them penitentiary chances, circumstances, and it's just, if it's not like life changing, then I don't feel like it's not worth it, because 9 times out of 10 is a setup, and it's a setup energetically to put you under the suspicion that they can then follow your ass and break into your spot and do all this other stuff. And then when you complain, it's like, what, you a criminal anyway? You know what I mean? That's their justification. So they create it from jump. They put it in our minds from jump that you just, and they'll do it themselves, but they have the law on their side as far as they invented the law. We had rules and regulations of the tribe and just like, this is how we function based on, cause and effect and learning by doing. But all this other stuff is like double language. It's like wicked intention, it's malevolent intention to only give certain people the opportunities to do certain things. And they have checks and balances and bureaucracies that can then, they can always like lose you in a paper trail because these lawyers trained on the language. So you don't want to play the game with them because they're cheaters fundamentally. You know what I mean? It's like, nigga, you can't beat me, so you got to cheat me. And that's just what it is. So when I seen her, I was just like, damn, she used to be the sweetest girl. And culturally, we got all these strippers rapping respectfully. But what they're doing is they're brainwashing women to think that they can get away with the shit that they was doing when spiritually they're not supposed to be that type of person. You know what I mean? Like them chicks, they cool with going to jail and doing penitentiary time because when they know when they get out, they still gonna be doing the grimy shit and they'll just die about it. And that's just what it is. But somebody who might have a light and an opportunity is like if you get caught slipping trying to be like that, then you lose that opportunity and now they'll feast on you too because it's like you ain't one of us, but you over here right now, you in this penitentiary, so now I'm gonna mark your face up, bitch. Bop, bop, you know what I mean? And it's just certain situations. Now it's just like you're in the system. Now you gotta align with somebody from a spiritual family that might be younger than yours because you're not honoring your true calling, which is always, always, always more than what money is actually worth. It usually comes with more personal development and just like being a real human. And though, I'm telling myself through this experience that there will come a time when I am supposed to speak in front of a large group of people or develop an idea through this suffering and experience to then be able to share with people. But if I get caught slipping by these crackers, you know what I mean? Like I was just at this burger spot and I walked up to get some fries and it was a sliding glass door that led to the dining area inside. It was just one of those upfront counters. And this fool comes outside, like, I think somebody paid him to do it. One of his little friends was like, I bet you won't do it. What you won't do it, Jed? And then this nigga walked outside, went over to near my car, and he was smoking a cigarette, and I wasn't paying attention to him. There was another woman sitting at the picnic tables that did the whole, like, I'm like to book a haircut appointment, like, trying to insinuate, nigga, we trying to scalp you, engine. You know what I mean? Just that whole little shit that they do. Where they're honoring their demigod, but of feasting on black flesh, or melanated flesh, you know what I mean? I don't need to get too deep into it, but it comes with like the territory. It's founded in jealousy and envy and ignorance. It goes way back, you know what it is, strange fruit, etc. Or just the culture of like when you become so infatuated with something that you either resent it or you want to eat it. That thing. So she did that. I ignored that because it's like, yeah, whatever. That's nothing. But then he comes outside. He's smoking a cigarette, and then he starts like stomping. He did like and it was on like he did like the Shawn Michaels Sweet Chin music amp up stomp, but it was like he was stomping in a way of like a curb stomp, and I reacted to it immediately just off an instinct of knowing what he was trying to insinuate, and the reason that I know that he was doing that is because when I called him out on it, he didn't say nothing. I pointed at him. I was just like, I'm not going to tell you what I said. It don't matter. I don't want to be inflammatory right now. But my reaction was very visceral and it was like justified. And he looked at me and he didn't say anything. And then he walked up to them and he was like, yeah, you see that tornado over there? As if to try to win them back on his side to be like, we three Europeans are united against you, black, brown man. You know what I mean? Like they did that whole thing. He did that whole thing. But that's the moment where I'm supposed to snap, go fight him, and then they could press charges. So he went to the whole like neo-Nazi, like curb stomps thing. Like this is a setup. They can't necessarily get me to like try to steal a nigga wallet or something because I'm past that. But they can get me to fight because on record recently I've fought. You know what I mean? And I've been calling shit out. And if he would have escalated it, we might have fought, and then they might have been they could be like, oh, we got the gun, he was a threat, bang, you know what I mean? Or just whatever the situation is. But these are the ways that they orchestrate trying to take people out or put them in circumstances where you're in the penitentiary now and you are trafficked. They could move you to wherever state. No, nigga, now you moving to Texas. Now you moving to New York. Now you move, and it's just over the course of time, now you're being trafficked and these motherfuckers are, eating off your likeness and your flesh. And this is how this country was founded, you know what I mean? But yeah, when I seen that, it just made me think about all this, and you know, I be wanting to do videos, but I'm just tired of being like super dedicated and then getting niggas gaslighting and shit. You know what I mean? And trying to like, it's like, oh, we see you, but fuck you. You know, just a little. It's weird. It's like this weird thing where it's like, who's who? Like, are we really all in it, or are niggas just trying to capitalize off the vibe, or it is what it is. But as far as she goes, I hope she cool, and I think women would be wise to align with more intelligent men for that reason, because knowing what to look out for to not get caught in a fucking pitfall is more important than just always having it in abundance, because sometimes those situations is where you're getting trafficked. And you might have abundance today, but then when they pull that rug, now you on your ass, and then they got you in the vice grip. Sometimes it's just a primer, get you accustomed to something, and then when they pull the rug, you're desperate, so now they got you. They do that in Hollywood. They do that in so many different circumstances. But yeah, I think this is the resurgence. This is a time for the resurgence of people who know what the fuck is going on, having the podium to speak, and not just the most outlandish voice that is willing to be controversial or popular, because, popularity a lot of times is just based on niggas not being threatened by you. Or, you know what I mean? Like, think about some of the most popular shit and how goofy it was in retrospect. And it's popular because they don't feel threatened by it. And when I say they, I mean the people in the high places that push the go button on it. Like, yeah, make that shit viral, because then we'll have everybody imitating that, i.e. the criminality that is a lot of times your only resort, seemingly, but reality is, like Snoop says, if I don't move, then I don't lose. You know what I mean? So sometimes you got to just chill and take those, little times where you might have your stomach touching or something, or, you know what I mean? Just on the other side of doing the shady deed is an opportunity to actually like advance in an echelon. So that's what I'm going through right now. It's like I'm resisting all urges to be devilish and B&E, splashing shit, hitting licks, whatever. And they're making sure, like no deliveries. Like they're putting me in the situation where it's like I'm just watching everybody else. And I'm basically, they're trying to funnel me into these little energy receptacles, which could be predetermined to where I become a sacrificial lamb for somebody else's agenda. But I have a purpose that's calling this higher than that, because that is just serving they're just serving a pale man, you know what I mean, as far as what they're doing. But it's like I'm supposed to go over there or like beg to be a part of something that doesn't have my best interest at heart and turns me into like a shadow or a shell of my former self. Doesn't honor my journey or anything. So I'm okay with sitting and building up my mental faculties and spiritual fortitude in the meantime, and not being so desperate to look like I got it figured out. I mean, not so, because I got it figured out, obviously, but it's like not so desperate to show that I can be like a pale man or a pale woman, because all of that stuff is after us. So it's like I'm not so desperate to try to be like them that I'm willing to cut my nuts off or like bleach my face or whatever, you know what I mean? And just like, and I'm going to live and die by that, because it's more of an authentic path than ending up as the same stereotype over and over and over and over and over again. And the longer you resist it, I feel like the more valuable you become to them and to yourself and nature, because it's like building up. It's like aging like fine wine. But if they get you, then they can just juice you and you're drained. You know what I mean? And now you're just a fucking raisin in the system, telling the same story on soft white underbelly. So, I got respect for everybody, but I just see what's going on, and I wouldn't be me to not speak on it and look out for the tribe when it comes to what's going on, to get motherfuckers caught up in the twist. And yeah, you know what I mean? We gotta deprioritize that system and reprioritize each other, and like quality vetting of like who's who, and not letting it be based on a Eurocentric beauty standard, which finances comes into play with that. And look at all these people in the world that are succeeding in like lavish, luxurious locations and all that. These are all like Nepo babies and motherfuckers who have benefited from that system. I don't see too many real niggas in Bali making music clearly classically trained by two parents who had six-figure jobs making music that was inspired by niggas. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see too many of us doing that because they've gate kept it, and they kind of like plan 20 years ahead to be like, all right, we're going to follow. We're going to, just like with Motown, just like with the Chitlin Circuit, just like with the shits, it's like, we need to see them do it from poverty, and then we imitate it with privilege. And then now we gatekeep the whole thing. So if you go on Instagram and you go on these websites, all you see is everybody else doing this shit that we started as a transmutation of our suffering, or like our pain, or like our joy even. And now it's like, I don't see nobody that looks like me, but everybody is like partying it up and having all the privileges and all that. And it's like, damn, it's kind of ill. It's kind of scary to just think like, man, they taking the soul out of everything, but they want the framework of it. They want to be able to like, you know, walk like an Egyptian and dance like the tribe, but they don't want to necessarily let the tribe orchestrate the ceremony, because then they'll feel uncomfortable. Like I was saying back about doing the Nene with Nene. But yeah, this is something sick happening in the world right now. I feel like niggas is getting subtly like pushed to the side. And when I say niggas, I mean negus, like tribesmen and tribeswomen, tribespeople. I feel like, you know, everybody's online trying to do what they do and hustle and get theirs. But in the real world outside, it's a lot less. I feel like I don't see, unless it's like 20 somethings whose parents got money and they're, you know, doing their fashion brands and all that stuff. But I just don't, it just feels like a weird Freaky Friday thing going on. And they trying to just lock everybody up that actually had something to do with the inception. So then they can all just frolic and, you know, be like, oh, there's no concept of anything other than them doing what they're doing. But yeah, peace to the tribe, you know what I mean? Shout out to anybody that's living a real life and didn't have it all handed to them, or, you know what I mean, has like integrity without how they've handled things, and like real motives behind it, and not just like trying to destiny swap and you know, put on kits in order to like portray something that they don't get as a concept of context of why it's important, because it doesn't have the same level of nutrition when it's presented, but it's always pristinely, you know, presented presentation wise. But yeah, I don't know if that makes sense to you, then you get what I'm talking about. If it don't make sense to you, then you might be one of them motherfuckers. But body snatchers, all this weird, you know, so much stuff is coming into play right now. But I got love for everybody once again. If your shit is good, I'll groove to your shit. But at the same time, if I look at you and I see a vapid fucking imitation mimic, then I'm like, man, fuck that. I don't care how good, I don't care how expensive that synth was. I don't care how much motherfucking, you know, what fashion brands you got on, and how many levels up on the high rise that you are. And you know what I mean? It's like, that shit ain't gonna help heal the, you know, the ghetto or the motherfuckers that's really going through this persecution on a ground level. This is just privileged people ignoring the truth and giving other privileged people a place to escape having to acknowledge the truth. But yeah, you know, back in the days, I feel like why rap and all these the cultures and all these things were so celebrated and so rich and beautiful, is because it's like, these are real people that came from the situation, not people who is imitating the situation. So it doesn't have that same essence in it. It's just a bunch of regurgitations of it's a imitation of an imitation of an imitation of an imitation. Now we're sampling the same record the 15th time, and it's like void of all spirit. You know, there's no imperfections, and it's like scared. It's too scared to try to be original. So it's just basically it's like a cracker saying, "This is the standard. This is the standard. This is the standard. If you don't fit this standard," and it just keeps everybody in that loop cycling in, and that's why motherfuckers is, you know, depressed. They don't know how to articulate it because they haven't been given a reference. But you know, everybody's hyper normalizing shit. But you know, I fucks with motherfuckers picking up the gun and doing artistic things with a gun and being like, yeah, you know, I'm wearing Dior with the gun. I'm wearing motherfucking Bottega Veneta with the gun. In the whole, you know, it's cool, it's cute, but it's like the initial version of it might have had more context that made it make sense. Now it's kind of just like, all right, none of you niggas is shooting. None of you niggas really had to go through shit. Your parents got 3 cars in the garage. Why do you have an AR? You know what I mean? But it's cute to the internet. They get bitches, you know what I mean? It just makes you seem dark and depraved. Everybody's on drugs, tweaking, but they don't have no real traumas to, you know, other than just human, like existing in a body. But that's the base level. We all share that. But, you know, besides reptilians. But when we could get to the next, you know, we just got to care more about context and why people are the way they are, and who really went through things and made it through things. And I feel like then when they speak, there's more gravity and then more people heal. But if the goal ain't healing, then carry on. But you know what I mean? Tupac was Tupac because of what he went through to become that. Even if they was like, we gonna orchestrate some things, the nigga had the cojones to do certain things that he did that in the life that he lived. And you know what I mean? Like Nina Simone, it's like, these are people who lived through travesties and atrocities and could articulate why. And then when they do the ratchet shit, it's like more justifiable, and then they can still balance it out. And I think, you know, but yeah, to that chick, the young lady, the Nubian that's in the back of that whip, and the other ones, just be careful, you know what I mean? All money ain't good money. We all know that. And a bitch ain't gonna leave a purse in the lobby if it's not a setup. You gotta think about the aftermath and not just the quick lick. Because a lot of niggas is doing time behind quick licks that was setups because, you know, you had greater potential and they just wanted to get you out the way early because somebody might have wanted to be you or they just was scared of you. So not everybody who's broke is quote unquote broke. Is broke because they're just shit. Is a lot of times these situations are orchestrated because finance is a system that helps to fix somebody else's feelings of inadequacy. None of this shit existed when we was out here kicking it with the tribe, and you know, people had relationships and children's and traveling lands and mapping out, you know, peaks and valleys and all that. All this shit came after. These was motherfuckers that was just like, I need a way to balance to beat them. You know what I mean? That's just what it was. So I'm gonna keep saying it. As long as you keep playing that shit with your full heart, you're gonna end up losing or looking just like them. And you know who I am talking about. But yeah, you know, we in the shadow right now because Corey's Dweller of the Hollow. So I guess it makes sense that I'm in the center of it all, but I'm also in the fray on the edges. So I can see the totality of the 360 degrees. So this is a message from the outside. Hopefully it reaches you in your core. And you know what I mean? We could decentralize this bullshit.